All right, well, welcome back into, well, not the studio, we're on the homestead, and I thought it would be good to kind of review over how I process my paint water. We are on a septic system, so I'm hyper vigilant about just dumping my paint water down the drain because it causes a lot of buildup within your drains, and as well as can damage your septic system. So I did a whole bunch of research on this, and I did find that there was a product out on the market. It was a kit, but it's very hard to come by. It's expensive, and I decided I needed to be able to do this over and over again to process my water. So I'm going to kind of go through those the products that I purchased to do this and how you do it. So I will put a link down below to the kit if you're interested in looking at that. And it is a kit. The kit itself is by Golden puts it out, I believe, if I'm recalling. It's been quite a while since I did all that. I got all that information, but pretty much what you need is 2 of the large buckets. Now I got mine from Home Depot. My brother-in-law works there, so I got 2 of these. You'll need 2 of them. One is for storing up your dirty water, and I have that right next to me. So all my paint water, it took me to fill one of these. I think these are 5-gallon jugs. I believe they are. That's a good question. I don't really know. I think that they are 3 to 5-gallon jugs or buckets. And it took me 4 to 6 months to fill one bucket. It takes me. The other thing you're going to need is a huge funnel. And I will list all the products below that I purchased. So this is a very large funnel. It actually fits into the bucket to filter. The other thing you're going to need is something to stir your mixture, your painty water with. So I've got, these are from Home Depot. They're like big paint bucket stir sticks, and they're really handy, and one can last you for quite a while until it gets sticky. The other thing you're going to need is large commercial sized coffee filters. Now you can see how large this coffee filter is. It is huge, but this coffee filter will fit into the funnel. So you're going to create a concoction inside your painty water, and once it coagulates, then you're going to strain it through this funnel with this paper. And what you're going to have left is essentially gray water. And then you can dump that gray water. So I always dump mine along the long edge of our property. We have what we call an alleyway, and I dump it out there because we don't want anything growing. I have heard people say that they water their plants with this gray water afterwards and they have no problems. So I just have never done that. I mean, we're out here in the desert and we don't really water much because we're always in water conservation mode, so I don't even think of it. The next thing you're going to need is a bucket, like this is an old potato salad thing, and I dip it into my painty water to then pour it through the filter, and then it goes into the clean water bucket, and then I dump from there. So aluminum sulfate, and this was a 4-pound bag. It's hard to find them in small quantities. And then this is also high yield. It's hydrated lime. And those are the 2 products that you use into your paint water that will make it coagulate. So all the acrylics in it, all the binders, everything will glomp together and then enable you to filter it out. The other thing is you'll need some kind of a measuring thing. You don't want, whatever you choose to use, you don't want to then turn around and use it in the house at all. It needs to be dedicated to this. So I have a scoop that I have marked off where 2 teaspoons is. So you'll need something that you can measure with. So usually I have a paint bucket in my studio and I dump my water in, my painty water or the water from cleaning up my stencils, into that paint bucket, and then once it's full, my husband's so nice and he brings it out here to the shed, and then because I have a hose available to clean out my buckets with, and I'm real close to our alleyway, so it's easier for me to dump. So that, and then once you pull that filter out with all the coagulated bits, that you can actually put in the trash, and then that's all you're left with. It is going to the dump or the landfill. So that's the first process. Those are the products we need and the basic way we go through it. So now I'm going to actually show you me going through the process of processing my painty water so that it is inert and I'm able to dump it. Okay, so you can see my 2 buckets I have. This is my wastewater bucket and this is where my clean water will go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by removing my lid and gaining access to my paint water. So we're going to start off with the aluminum sulfate first. We're going to do this in increments. So I'm going to do it in 2 teaspoon increments. So I'm going to measure that. You really should have goggles and gloves on because these can be caustic chemicals. So I'm going to start off. I know this isn't enough, but this is how I always start, is I start with the 2 teaspoon. And I'm going to shake that into my water and start to stir. You're going to get that really well stirred, and then we're going to go to our next chemical. So our first was the aluminum sulfate. And now we're going to add the hydrated lime in the same amount. And this is less granulated, it's more of a powder. And we're going to stir that in. If you don't see it automatically start to coagulate, then you are going to add a little bit more of the aluminum sulfate and then the hydrated lime. So I'm going to add just a tad more because I do start to see it barely starting to coagulate. And I'm going with the 2 teaspoons again measurement. That well stirred, and now I'm going to add in my hydrated lime. Now if you wanted to be really cautious, you could get pH strips and test this. Test your water to make sure it's pH neutral. And I'll list for you what pH neutral is, because off the top of my head I can't remember. I think it's between 5 and 9 on a pH strip. So once that is well stirred, and you can see it starting to coagulate, then you're gonna actually let this sit for an hour to 2 hours. And you're gonna see the coagulated acrylic bits are gonna settle to the bottom. And then we'll go through the process of filtering them out, those particles out. Now that this is sat to separate, I'm going to prepare my clean water bucket, or the filtering bucket. So we're going to just take this funnel and set it on the bucket. And you can see on this 5-gallon bucket, there's probably about 4 gallons of water that we're processing. And this funnel sits right on the lip and holds itself there. So the first filter, I usually point it into a point and then just put in like that. And then I do the same thing, and we're going to double filter. So we're going to use this secondary container to pull out the water. And for the most part, you can see now this water is pretty clear. It has globules in it. And we're going to slowly pour it into the filters until the filters are wet. They'll sometimes come into the center. But you want to make sure you process all the water at once and not let this filter sit, because all the little globules will meld together and make it not filter out. At some point in time, the bottom of your filter is going to hit water, and you're going to have to lift it so it can drain more. And I don't know if you can see that, but that water's coming out clear instead of gray. So here you can see how clear that water is now that it's been filtered. So that's the clean water. And here you can see maybe the gray water. The the water with the paint still in it that I'm filtering. So about halfway through the process, I let the filter totally drain out, and then I put in a second set of 2 filters, and I'm processing the second half of the water. The reason I do that is because I've found that there's so much waste down, particulates down in that filter, it really slows the process down. So I'm going to show you now what the second filter is doing, and then what the first filter looks like after I've, the first set of filters after I've processed the first half of the water. So here is the second set of filters processing the water, and this is the first set of filters. And this, what I will do is I will set this out to dry before I dump it. But you can see all the thickness, the gumpiness of it. And also, if you look into my waste bucket, you can see how granular and solid that acrylic matter has become. And that is the full process. So here you can see this is drying. That's the first set of filters. And this is on my second set of water, or second set of filters, is almost done processing. And the reason I do this is because I use such a large bucket. I have about 4 gallons, and so I do about 2 gallons, and then I use another set of filters to finish the second half of the bucket, the additional 2. But you can really see how much particles we catch and filter out of that water. And then here it is, clear water.